Good morning, Shad Baker here. It is early on Monday morning, the day before this MLF Bass Pro Tour kicks off in Raleigh, North Carolina. So we got 3 lakes we're looking at this week. It's going to be kind of an interesting deal, unique tournament. Really, I don't remember anything quite like this. But the Bass Pro Tour guys are going to compete on 3 different lakes. I believe they're going to be on Jordan Lake. They're going to be on, I think, Jordan Lake 2 days, Falls Lake 1 day, or maybe 2 days, and then Sharon Harris for the championship round, something like that. Sharon Harris is the smallest one, looks like, so that would make sense. All 3 lakes are pretty shallow. That's the first thing I noticed. I don't have any prior knowledge of any of these lakes, but looking around here, I mean, they're all 40 feet or less for the most part. Like right out in the middle of the lake here, it's 40 feet. And that's on, that's Jordan Lake. Then Sharon Harris is the one right below here, I believe. Yep. And it looks like it might have some 45, according to Avionics, it's got some 45 feet deep places. Come on back up here to Falls Lake. And I believe it was the same. It's even shallower up the river especially. Come on back down. I think there was some places in the channel where it's 40 or 50 feet. So, yeah, if Navionics is right, I mean, it's pretty good usually. So, it looks like it's 40 feet in some places. So, relatively shallow when you think about a 20-foot boat and deepest place on the lake's 2 of those standing end on end. It's pretty shallow. So, let's look to start with here at Jordan Lake. Another thing to note is the weather is about to hit these guys right in the mouth. I mean, it's typical of a tournament. It's been pretty nice up there, and then today 74 for a high, tomorrow 54. 33 for a low, 33 the next 2 nights. And this time of year, I mean, the fish are trying to move up. They're trying to at least stage probably up there. They're probably not quite ready to spawn. They're spawning down here in Alabama a little bit. But, I mean, 70, 74, those kind of degree days, awesome. Those highs and everything's getting right. And then, bam, you get hit in the mouth at 33 degrees. So, probably going to bump them back a little bit, slow the bite down, especially on that, probably Wednesday, probably real tough. I would expect the weights will be worse on Wednesday than they will tomorrow. But later in the week, you look at it, and it's going to get back up to the 70s, and that should be a good time for those guys that make it towards the end of the week. So sunny days and 70 degrees will get those fish back in the right mood. So let's jump back over to the lakes. So Jordan to start with. I'm not sure where they're putting in on the lakes, but it really doesn't matter because they're so small. This time of year, I would want to be close to shallow spawning areas, but still have some deep water around. So I like the looks of this little arm here, branch, or whatever it is. Robertson Creek, I believe it says. It's got a lot of deep water close to the bank. And then it's got these little transition areas where a fish can kind of move up into here. Let's look and see what that looks like on the Angler app. So yeah, it looks like there might be even a winter pool based on this. If you see that little bit of white around the edges, when you're zoomed out a little bit on that satellite image, it's probably where the water was down. You can see some sand, so let's see. But when you zoom on in, it looks like that image was taken when the water was up. So yeah, I mean, these little cuts and pockets, I'm sure there's some laydowns. Looks like there might be even a little bit of shoreline vegetation right there. If you look, yeah. See there? And so that's the kind of stuff you can swim a jig around. Spinnerbait if it's pretty muddy. So I like that. Drop some waypoints. All right. And it may be like what we saw, Knoxville's not really that far at the Classic last week. It's not that far north to south away from this. So it could be, talked to James Elam for a piece for Angler. We just got up Bassmaster Classic recap, and he was mentioning that he focused too much on these little creeks and stuff when he was on Fort Loudon. And most of the top 5 caught them out on the main river run. So it could be the same situation here where they're not quite this far along yet, but, every lake's different. These small lakes, these fish probably react quicker to weather than they do on those big river systems, especially like Loudon, where there was so much current, keeping the water kind of cold and unstable and moving. So just easing around and marking some more of these shoreline vegetation areas, and maybe able to even flip some of this stuff if that cold front comes in. It gets pretty rough. If there's some of it kind of matted out or at least topped out, may see a few guys flipping. So there's another little bit right there. So yeah, I like that, and two, if the fish aren't quite that far back, you see where basically marked stuff back up in that flat there. Remember, this channel here had deep water running into it. So you may find them kind of more on these transitions, or more right before you get to the transitions, kind of on these bluffy walls, throwing a jig or a jerk bait. Something like that might work. So let's go back over here and maybe right in here, put some rock. Same thing, these little rocky points. So let's move on up Jordan a little bit here. Again, you can kind of see where these sandy spots are. It indicates where it's a little shallower up against the banks. And you can tell it too by this blue on the avionics. There's a lot more dark blue up there, so there's a lot of water under 5 feet. So it looks like they have a winter pool, but stuff like that. This right here may be a good staging area for them. Just a main lake, point. A lot of water around that. And again, these lakes aren't very big, so that right there looks pretty good for like a football jig, Carolina rig kind of deal. A lot of deep water around it. You see another good area right here where the channel kind of gets right up against the bank, right up against this shallow flat. So I'll mark these two for, let's see where that is, for maybe a staging kind of pre-spawn deal. So it's right here where these points kind of come together. So something like that could play, maybe even like a crankbait out there. Probably not tomorrow or the next day when it's so cold, but if that water's 10 feet deep, it might not be as affected by that cold snap. But all the fish that might be up real shallow are probably going to be hit pretty hard. And it's coffee time. He said it's early on Monday morning, and we're trying to get this thing out. So let's look around a little bit more. Again, I like these areas where there's a lot of deep water and then these little spawning pockets real close by. So I might look like here and here. The cool thing about this lake is it's so small, you can probably, these guys will be able to break it down really quick, and give them a couple days of practice here and there. You should see some patterns come together pretty quickly from these guys. And that live leaderboard deal, like whenever Aaron Martins catches a fish, they know what he's doing. When, Tharp catches a fish, they know what he's doing. So those guys are able to react and adjust based on the leaderboard and kind of catch them, because the certain guys, what they're going to be doing. Like if Tharp goes to catch them, they're biting shallow because he's going to stick with it. He's going to power fish, and if he wins, he wins. If he doesn't, he doesn't, but he's going to do it his way. So that live leaderboard really adds a whole nother level to it. So let's see. There's another good little place where a lot of those topo lines are real tight together, indicating deep water right near the bank. So I like this little area right here. go ahead and mark that. Seems like it's just so the same thing as we marked before, just main lake transition areas. Go for a little crankbait, maybe a jig, that kind of deal. I like these little creeks, but again, maybe just a little too early. But you'd have to go back here and look around and see what you could find. You know, these little bridges. Gunnersville is one of those places where all these little bridges and stuff. I mean, you know, I suppose there's some big fish in these little lakes. So if you can get on one of these deals where these fish are funneling in and out of these spawning areas, it could be huge. And you know, Randy Howell won the Bassmaster Classic on Gunnersville fishing a bridge like this. So I can see something like that playing. Let's see what it looks like on here. Yeah, it's a little old. There's probably a culvert over here too, I would imagine, where you can get through. It doesn't look like it. So there's any houses back here. I don't see any, so you may not be able to get through here, but typically there's a culvert or something, even on these little roadways, causeways. But you can see the bridge for sure here, and there's two boats fishing it. So, you know, that may be the boat ramp where they're putting in at. That's a pretty good sized boat ramp. So I'd say that bridge there may be the deal, maybe one of the deals this week. And then again, just all back in these areas, these flats and stuff. I like this stuff, but it would probably bite me this week because it's just, they're probably just not quite there, but I still have to come back here and check it out. Upriver, same thing. You know, it's another little branch and bridge, another little branch and bridge. Up the river is another bridge. So all these bridges, you could see patterns come together up there. These little branches feeding into these creeks. Could be a deal with a rattle trap or something like that. That's a pretty good look at Jordan Lake. Let's move down here to Sharon Harris. Again, this is my first look at these lakes. I'm right here with y'all. So let's go to Navy Ox. You know, more deep water close to the bank on the right hand side here. The east side of the lake looks like it's shallower. You know, more gradual transitions on the left side, kind of more of the channel on the right. So it just depends. That's the good thing about it, though. If you start developing them, you get a few bites on the east side of the lake here where it's a lot steeper, you can put together a pattern pretty quick on that side, just bounce those points because there's just not that much water on the lakes. And the same can be said about the left side. You know, if you start getting bit over there, you can just run around and get more bites probably because these fish are going to be pretty predictable wherever they are. Once you kind of get it going, they should be doing the same thing all over the lake. You know what I mean? So they're not really, I don't think they're going to be like all over the place and some out deep, some up shallow, some in the back of pockets. There will be some of all that, but the majority of them in Alabama, and the same thing up here in North Carolina, we've had for 3 or 4 weeks now really nice weather, interrupted by a couple of days of really bad weather. So these fish are should be bunched up right there on the verge of moving up, and they shouldn't be just kind of spread out everywhere. I think that 3 or 4 weeks ago, a lot of fish across the south were ready to spawn, and just like right there at it. And we had 2 or 3 22-degree nights down here in Alabama, and probably a little bit worse up there. But like I said, every week we get a couple bad days of weather, and it's just bumping them back, bumping them back, bumping them back. But they're right there. So I think if you find a few fish, you'll find enough to do really well, and you can focus on one thing. I don't know what that thing is, if it's a football jig or, you know, a medium diving crankbait, something like that. The water temps up there, I would imagine mid-50s. So, you know, it could be one of those deals where they're finally, you know, enough's enough and they're ready to go. Like I said, it's 74 degrees up there today, so they may be sitting there ready to just push on back, and you may be able to get in these pockets and throw a chatterbait around up shallow and try to catch them. But here's another little deep transition bank. got a lot of deep water right here funneling into this pocket. So, like I said, the same kind of stuff that we looked at on Jordan Lake. I don't know water clarity wise, one lake to the other. Let's see if we can go back in the Angler app and tell. See what this looks like. It doesn't look like much color there. You know, it's pretty clear. You can see these points underwater. This is back up on Jordan Lake, so it's a fairly clear lake. At the time this satellite image was taken, who knows? But this area should all have been taken about the same time. So, yeah, I mean, these lakes look fairly clear. They probably have a little color to them, especially with all the rain we've had lately, but I wouldn't say they're just, you know, mud holes. Let's come up here to Falls Lake. It looks like it might have a little bit more color than it. So I could see like a chatterbait, spinnerbait type deal working more up here. Yeah, you can see, I mean, you can see a mud line right there coming out of that river where it's kind of funneling down there. So, yeah, there's a lot more color in Falls Lake, looks like. So, you know, I could see something like that, square bill, chatterbait, spinnerbait kind of deal working really well. And it's good to see these lakes are a little different, too, because they're all so close together. I believe Falls Lake's going to have a lot more color to it. And that should affect the fishing one way or the other and make it a little different. You know, add some diversity to the week. So let's dive back down here and just kind of touch on Sharon Harris a little bit more before we move up to Falls. So, again, I mean, these little short pockets, little feeder creeks, you know, all this kind of stuff I would look into. There's everything you need for the spawn and pre-spawn in these pockets. You got hard pre-spawn too, like they could be out here on the edges, kind of out on the main lake, getting ready. Out here on these points, they can push on up and get kind of in that right before the spawn deal, where they're on these points, these little secondary points, they're inside the pocket. And then if they really get ready, they can bump right up in there and they can spawn. So I would look around these kind of pockets with these little fingers on them a good bit. Look for that deal. Here's another pretty good little creek, another flat in the back. I mean, you may see some guys get on these little flats and catch them on something like a rattle trap back in there, casting around. It just all depends too on the bait. If they're not really focused on the spawn yet, they're going to be around the bait wherever that is. But there's another little spot in the very back of this creek where there's one last little deep hole, and across from it a little shallow flat. So I like that. Let's see. I think it was right in here. All right, let's see. Looks like maybe another little causeway. Yeah, or that's the dam, I guess, there. Yeah, it looks like an overflow dam there. Huh. It's interesting. There might be some kind of, I guess there's some kind of generation or outflow right here, so that could be something there. You could see a guy run up here and fish under this dam. It's kind of neat. I'd have to check that out. It'd be better, I think, in the summer. But there may very well be some fish up there. You know, it might be more of a player in the summer. If the fish was pretty tough, you could go up there where that water's kind of coming through. That's interesting, though. So, more of the same. That's the interesting thing about these little lakes. They're not very big, but there's a good bit of water where it's a lot of similar water, and you have to just cover a lot of water to find these little groups of fish right now. You'll see guys this week fishing the exact same looking stuff and not catching fish, and then other guys are, like I said, in very similar places, but catching them and not catching them. Looks like some shallow vegetation way up in the back of here. And I'm not sure on these. I'm sure there's somewhere you can check the water levels, but they may not be all the way full yet if they were in their winter pool. But man, that stuff looks good right there. If it was a little later, probably. I mean, I don't know if they're going to be related to that much just yet, but that looks pretty enough. I'd have to go check it out. This shallow vegetation. A little bit more there. Stuff is pretty shallow though. And this, like it says on Navionics, there's a lot of submerged vegetation, which if that's the case, I mean, like you see it here, it says submerged vegetation, flooded timber, submerged vegetation. It says it everywhere. I don't know if there's much of hydrilla in here, submerged vegetation. You know, some of these lakes I've seen before on Navionics where it used to have a good bit of vegetation and it's not there anymore. But if there is, I mean, you can see these guys go out there with a rattle trap or DT6, something like that, and throw it around this shallow. If it's hydrilla or coontail or something like that, that could be a big player. I like that point right there. That's a pretty pronounced shallow flat right there with some deep water, you know, all around it. I can see a guy kind of sitting right there catching several main lake deal. Let's go back over and mark that. I believe it's about here. I don't know, you know, Sharon Harris is kind of, looks like it might be a little bit of stain water up above this bridge. Yeah, so here's another bridge too. I mean, bridges, again, they play this time of year in a lot of the country. Yeah, it looks like a lot of shoreline vegetation back here. I'm guessing there is going to be a good bit of some sort of, you know, stocky type coontail or hydrilla. I bet Dean Rojas sees this stuff and is like, man, if it was just a few more weeks as far as throwing a frog, that's some good stuff. I just don't know how much water's back here. It looks pretty shallow, but all this, if the fish, like I said, it may be just 3 weeks early for all this back here, but it's pretty. I'd have to check it out. I'd have to make them prove to me they weren't going to bite. But if it is a little early back there, that's where these bridges come into play, because that's where the fish have to come from, you know, if they're not already in this pocket kind of back here. So I'd focus on, like, you know, cutting them off at the pass if they're not back here yet, because that's a spawning flat. You know, I mean, those fish go back there and spawn, even if they're not there yet. Let's go back to Navionics here. See if we can find any more kind of staging areas. Just all these little deep points. Like I said, if you get bit here, you should probably be able to get bit here, here, here. I mean, they're very patternable this time of year. So, you know, if you can get bit on one of these shallow ones, you should be able to get bit here, here, here. All that kind of stuff should relate. You know, they should be relating to the same stuff. So let's jump on up to the last lake, Falls Lake. And this isn't in the order they're going to fish them this week. This is just kind of what we're doing. Let's see what the dam is here. Pretty neat to have this many good little lakes real close by. Be interested to see how they catch them. All right, so there's a dam there. I guess that's cutting it off. just from there up, and I believe that's just a bridge. So, I wonder if I can go all the way down to here. It looks like they can. There's another little colored up pocket back here behind that bridge. I don't see a causeway to get into that one, or a culvert underneath the causeway. There's another little bridge. Could be good. Nice little cuts there, little branches. I think that's all going to be within the lake. Let's see. I don't know, I like the steep stuff, like I said, but I don't like just pure bluff, all bluff this time of year. I want to have it pretty close to where these fish can move up. I guess, they could spawn these little pockets too, but that's just a lot of steep banks, river run. Like right here, first little creek in a while that you can kind of get up in. You can see the fish kind of funneling into there. You're catching them on these points. Kind of a narrow little lake, looks like. Let's drop a couple waypoints there. Where's that little creek at? Yeah, it's more the same as that other lake. What I was really interested in earlier is this. There's another little bridge. It's kind of like a main lake bridge, though it's not going into a creek or a spawning flat, so it's not really. I wouldn't be as interested in that bridge as I would these little bridges that feed into these creeks, these creeks are feeding into, But what I was interested in a while ago on this one is, where was this stained water? Yeah, up here. All this water where you can kind of tell it's getting a little bit more stain to it. I like the looks of that a lot. Just because that's what I'm very comfortable with. I like fishing muddy water with a spinnerbait this time of year. Any kind of cover. Actually, writing a slow roll spinnerbait piece right now for angler. Be available in a few weeks. Talking about just fishing a spinnerbait alongside trees and docks and rocks and wood, whatever's in the water. Just really taking your time with it, because these fish are kind of they're trying to feed and trying to eat up, and but they're a little bit lethargic still, especially early in the day. That's a pretty good size little marina, but I don't like it that much. That there's no tops to it. You might be able to pull in there and catch a few fish, but I don't think you could spend much time in there. It's kind of a weird deal. It's a lot of cars. Yeah, that's not really much of a marina. That's just mainly like a few docks. Let's move on around the corner here. That little branch looks pretty good, but again, here's where the stain starts. I see somebody on this lake, on Falls Lake, doing good from here up, from that waypoint up in this area. Just because that's the only color I've seen in 3 lakes, as far as the water goes. All these little feeder pockets and creeks and stuff, that's pretty to me. Just a good stain. Let's drop a few waypoints back here. It's going to be an interesting week. Like I said, this is something we haven't really seen. Another bridge, could be a big deal. Kind of feeding into all this stuff. Let's see if there's a transition point. There's another little bridge back here. Several of them. Let's see if there's any transition area, like hard, deep spots up here. That's where the whole lake just starts getting pretty shallow up here. But there's still a channel, so I'd say see where the channel gets pretty close. So that's about right there is where I think the stain gets started pretty good. You know, maybe these 2 points are pretty obvious, but right here at basically the mouth of it. And then here the channel kind of gets to the left. I like that. The channel kind of swings hard right here. That's probably the last little deep water right there, which could be really good. So let's mark that. That's right there there's a little boat ramp right there. So the island. Right here, that's the last little deep water, I believe. So that could be good. And there was another little spot out here. See the channel kind of swung to the left, went to the right there. I think it was to the left right here. I'm going to put these on here where we can see them a little bit better. Make sure that's in the right place. Yeah. Yeah, so I like those little spots. There's one more. Let's mark this right here where the channel gets pretty close to the bank. I think that's it. Maybe a little bit further up. Oh, that's it. All right, well, there's a look at Jordan, Falls Lake, and Sharon Harris. It's going to be a cool week. I mean, this is different. So, I applaud MLF on doing something a little different. This is definitely going to be interesting. And the guys, I talked to a couple of guys, you know, headed up to practice, and when they were coming off of, I guess, Conroe was where they were last, talked to a couple of them, and they were pretty intrigued by it. But what's interesting is that you have very limited practice time for these things. So they ran into the same thing at Toho when they were going to fish Garcia on the final day. Not many people even practice because, if you're not in the top 10, you're not even going to fish the lake. So they were so focused on trying to make it there. And then a couple of or maybe 5 or 6 of the guys that made the top 10 had never even seen Garcia until that morning. So you'll see that too here where they have 2 or 3 practice days total, maybe 2 days. I think just yesterday and today. And there's going to be several of them who don't even go look at these other little lakes. I mean, like at Toho, they were given, or the Kissimmee chain, they were given, I think, 6 hours where they could go to Garcia and idle around and troll a motor around but not fish. I'm sure they have something like that here for these second round lakes, but I wouldn't be surprised if very few of them even go, you know. So we'll see what happens. It's going to be an interesting tournament. Who do I think will play? Edwin Evers is just on fire right now. He didn't have that stellar of a classic, but, you know, it'd be hard to bet against him right now. Jordan Lee, obviously, again, which he and I fished together in college, and he is one of the best in the world at breaking down water that's right in front of him. He doesn't think about what happened last year or earlier that morning or anything. He doesn't care if he's ever seen the lake. I mean, you pull over on a mud puddle on the side of the interstate and he can throw out there and catch a 5-pounder. He's just really good at breaking down whatever's in front of him at that moment. And that's the main thing with MLF. I mean, your conditions are changing so much. It's so different because, like, even on the first 4 days, when your group's out there on day 1 and you're off the water on day 2 and you go back out on day 3, it's so hard to stay on fish day to day, much less skipping a day in between. So you got to be really good at just fishing the moment, which all these guys are. But Jordan, and it's no surprise to the world now because he's done what he's done, but he's always been that way. He's just so good at fishing the moment. So I could see him doing really well, obviously. A guy like Randy Howell, he likes to do the shallow cranking deal. And I think he's from up around North Carolina originally, but probably don't have much history on these lakes. There's not really a lot of tournaments on these lakes because they're so small. But I could see him doing well with like a medium diamond crankbait just because that's what he loves to do. And these little bridges everywhere could play. And, I mean, that's just right up his alley. So somebody like that, again, if it was a little later, in that, especially in that Sharon Harris where all that vegetation is, I could see somebody like Dean really playing or Ish. Brett Height may be one to look at with a chatterbait. It's getting closer. I mean, you saw some little flurries from him at Conroe where he would catch a few on the chatterbait. But I think that things are really kind of playing into that just right at pre-spawn bite. Where they're up shallow, they want to eat. They're trying to eat up and get big. So something like that, like a chatterbait guy, could do really well this week, I think. So that's just some guys to look at. Any of them could win. I mean, they're all great, but it'll be very interesting to see. Another thing about this one that's going to be kind of neat is with these small lakes. I'm very interested to see how they manage fish in this one because you can't just catch them. They were having to manage fish on Toho and Kissimmee and all, where these monster lakes are all tied together and a lot of water to fish. And once a guy gets into that cut and feels pretty safe, I see him backing way off and just going practicing and maybe even just fish stuff that he thinks might line up with the next lake, just to kind of get in that groove, whether it's, if he's thinking that, well, that Sharon Harris lake looks like it's going to be more of a deep bite, or might just try to look for something totally different on the lake he's on currently to kind of go ahead and start practicing because there's just you can't just lean on these fish on these little small lakes. There's going to be too many of the guys out there doing it already. Like, just catching enough that if you lean on your fish too. So, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see because it's not even going to matter, I don't think, on day 2 if you catch everything that bites because you're done after that on that lake. But on day 1, I mean, if you see a guy jump out right quick and get a pretty big lead, I think he'll back way off on day 1. But it doesn't really matter because it's cumulative. I don't know. It's so weird now. Like, the first 2 days for each guy is cumulative, so I guess they'll just catch everything they can on the first day. If they don't catch anything on the second day, it doesn't even matter because it's all cumulative. So, I don't know. It's going to be neat to see. And that's the thing about this whole format. It's a thinking man's game. I mean, you really got a lot more strategy involved now. You want to catch everything you can, but you don't want to penalize yourself in later rounds when the weights are zeroed. But I believe on this deal, before the weights are ever zeroed in each round, you're going to be moved to another fishery. So, going to be neat to watch. I think they start up tomorrow morning. So, appreciate you guys watching. Excited about this one. We'll see what happens at the next one. You guys have a good one.